Hi, welcome to Heart Change You Live. I'm Ashley. I'm here with Heather and David. We have Mr. Matthew back there in the control room. He's punching the buttons and switching the screens. So he's watching YouTube and Facebook, watching your comments. So if you would like to join in with us, please leave a comment, leave a question. We'd love to answer what's on your mind or if it relates to the topic or not. So thanks for joining us today. So today we are going to talk about friendship, friends for life.
Yeah.
So this is where I normally kind of ask you where this came from.
But you know where it came from.
It did. It came from me. Because I was like, we were talking a couple weeks ago about, being married and how to choose a spouse and all that. And, almost every time we talk about like, have good friends in your life, have good people in your life. But how do you get good friends? Like, what is a good friend? Mm-hmm. What does that look like? And so I feel like that's one of the first steps is getting a good friend base.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree. And I really enjoyed that you brought the topic. And then it was affirmed because Pastor walked in and he didn't know that you and I had this conversation. So he walked in a couple days ago and he was like, we need to talk about intimate friendship. And I was like, apparently we do, because I was already told that one. So
see, I beat you to the gun.
Yeah.
I jumped the gun on you.
Yeah. But I do. I think in every topic, we always come around to how important it is to have people in our life who speak truth, who give us guidance. And, for me, it's a whole new way of thinking, just like any aspect of the Christian walk. The way that what I'm learning as a fairly new Christian, that Christian friendship or godly friendship, it's very different than what the world sees as being a good friend.
Yeah.
And so that's why I chose friends for life, because that is things, it's a little, we're BFFs or we're friends for life or friends forever or whatever. But that was very different for me at one point in my life, and I really wanted to explore what you guys see as being the differences and what it means to have a godly friendship and what does it mean to just kind of an overview.
Yeah.
And then we can get more into how can I be a godly friend? Where can I find godly friends? But it's a whole new way of thinking. And I think for me, it'll really be helpful. It's been something that's been a really important part, especially of the last year of my life, to watch how God has been growing me in this area.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we choose friends based on proximity, availability, sometimes common interests. And I was kind of thinking about this and why people maybe sometimes get in real, bad friendships, or friendships with bad people that aren't healthy for them. So I was thinking about this and I was kind of talking to God about it while I was driving. I was like, well, God, beggars can't be choosers. And he said, stop begging. I was like, what? And he's like, then stop begging. Wait for the one I send you.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, yeah. We just kind of jump into a relationship and people don't usually wait on a good friend.
Well, you just said the winner right there is wait for the one that he sends you, because quite often the friend that the Lord wants you to have isn't going to be the friend that you would pick on your own. So that was extremely spot on. That's why I wanted to jump in.
Well, that was him, not me. So there you go.
I'm absolutely hoping that Matthew will talk about this because he's been one of those people, as well as both of you, who have shown me what it means to be a godly friend, and his wife as well. So I'm really excited about this topic and about talking about it and exploring it.
You talked about friends for life, and that's something that I would go back to, that I guess I feel like I see a uniqueness in my life that is interesting. I've had decades at this point, obviously. I've had period, I was in Salina, in Dallas, back here, just all kinds of different time zones and people zones, and I've traveled around the world and different stuff. And the thing that I love about so many of the friendships that I have is you can pick back up right where it was. I mean, I have have too many spheres in my life to possibly even begin to keep up with all the different time periods and all of the different situations. But it's amazing to me, especially in Christ, having built healthy relationships at different points in my life, how often I can go back and, oh, wow, 10 years just went by. And I'm able to get back with somebody and renew a friendship, and it's like no time went by. I love that particular part of friendship, and so when you said friends for life, you think of, and I do have a close best friend relationship where it's been all through my life. I mean, it's 40 plus years of just maintaining consistent relationship, and that's one. But I also have other relationships that you might have a gap of 5 years now and then, or 10 years, or 2 years, or whatever, and still able to go back and pick that up. And that just speaks well of the quality of friendship when that is able to happen.
Yeah, I think longevity is definitely the first thing you think when you think about friends for life. I do think, too, that there's a double meaning, though, or maybe multiple meanings. You have a book called Being Life Givers, which was a new concept for me, what it means to speak life, to give life to another person, and to be someone who brings that into our friendship. Also, especially because of our program, working with people who have been in dysfunction for so long or in struggling with addiction, a lot of times those relationships need to be severed. There's not any sort, there may be longevity, and there may be a period of grieving that goes along with having to sever those relationships. It may even be people that we're related to, cousins or siblings or even parents, who we've spent a lot of time with, but it's not been a healthy relationship. And sometimes those ties can truly be ties that bind in a bad way. And they have to be severed or at least separated for a period. But then what do you do in the meantime? And how do you learn how to have? So that's where I was when I got here. I didn't have relationships with my family. I didn't have relationships with people in my life. My addiction had really isolated me from people for several years. So I'd been estranged from my family. I'd been estranged from everyone that I knew for a very long time. And I had to relearn how to have relationships with people and also learn how to do that in a different way, because I knew what I was doing wasn't working, So, I like what Ashley was talking about how does the world really look at a friend? Sometimes it's proximity, shared interests, but I think the biggest thing is it's about how it's selfish. It's how you make me feel. Do we have fun together? And the friendship is kind of based on that seeking and finding pleasure in the world. Do we go out and do fun things together? How do you make me feel? And is it exciting? And, especially when we're younger, for sure.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that sometimes with unhealthy friendship, there's also this idea that if you truly are my friend, then you'll think like I think, you'll act like I act, you'll do the things I want you to do, you'll behave in a certain way because you're my friend. And I think that puts some unhealthy ties on people. And then it's like, well, let's hate my ex-boyfriend together.
Yes.
And there's some camaraderie, but, there's also times where it's like, no, sometimes a true friend will oppose you and say, no, that's not how we're going to act. That's not what we're going to be like. That's a good friend.
That is a good friend. And I find myself being able to allow someone to vent for a few minutes and then say, okay, do you want to get in the solution? Do you want feedback, or do you just need to let all that out? Because sometimes you do. Sometimes you just need to blood, guts, and body bags, just like, hey, just get it all out. But then, a real friend, in my experience, is going to say, here's what I see. So, we could do a whole episode, and we might do that, on how to see someone else and how to share with them what they see. But yeah, I have on my notes that they sympathize with and rationalize your wrongdoing. you know, and
Oh.
that's a pretty good indicator. It's a pretty good red flag. You know, if I'm venting, if I'm angry, and then they're like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to see that about that so and so. You know what I mean? Not necessarily. I mean, they may validate, yes, what you're seeing is true, but they won't get on my bandwagon of wanting to go and, you know,
Hurt people,
or just feeding into the resentment, or sympathizing and rationalizing if I'm in sinful behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I need somebody who can say, you know, I get where you're coming from, but that's a dangerous path. You know.
Yeah, I see. That takes a strong person to stand up to that, and someone that's full of integrity themselves, you know, to not be blown around. Because when you're in a friendship, that's a pretty strong relationship, and sometimes we can navigate relationships by fear of losing that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't want to say something. I don't want to do something. But someone who values, I guess, integrity over, you know, and values God over people, you know.
Yeah. And truth. You know, do I really want what's best for you, or do I just want you in my proximity and in my friend group?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. You know, there are people who just want me around. There are some people who want me to live and to thrive.
And I think there's different levels too. Like there's people you can go have fun and, you know, like, hey, let's go to Sonic or let's go have fun. And then there's people like you can actually share your deepest stuff with.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
we've talked
They
before.
don't have to be the same level.
Right. You've got, like, Jesus had his inner circle of 3, you know, and then it's concentric circles, and there are people who are a little bit further out. So certainly not every friend and certainly not every acquaintance is going to be, unless you're Matthew, somebody that you could just speak. But he is one of the people who has been able to do that for me. Like I said, that I know that it's from a place of love. I also know that it's from a place of truth. And I so respect that. You know, it's teaching me how to have more integrity in my relationships. Do you have something to say to that, Matthew?
I agree. No, for me, you know, I've never had a whole large group of friends, but I've always had a few close ones throughout the years because, you know, I've always moved a lot. But something that I have found has gotten me a better quality of friends is being willing to be truthful all the time. And that's really hard. So like one of my best friends right now, unfortunately, he moved out of state, but we still are in contact. But the reason we became friends, he actually had gone out of his way as my doctor to purchase me something on his own and say, here, try this to see if it would help. And then he had asked me about it like a month or two later. And I lied and said, oh yeah, I've used it. It didn't really do much. And within 20 minutes, I was so upset with myself and convicted. I went over to him and explained to him that I had lied, hadn't used it at all. And he's like, what? Okay. And now we've been best friends since, because he knows if I'm willing to admit something so stupid like that, I'm going to be true with him on everything. And so for me, I found that the bedrock of it is searching for the Lord and having the integrity and truth involved. And that's just made my quality of friends better, is just being honest.
Yes.
You know, I think, you know, that honesty is almost like a shield, because there's going to be 2 types of reactions when you're that kind of honest. You know, you're going to have either people who are going to respect your integrity and think, I want to get to know this person. Then you're going to have the other person who's going to be like, ugh.
I think you and I had some of that reaction, but then it turned into, oh, wait a minute, he's not actually just a jerk. He's just trying to be honest with me. Am I pretty close?
Well, yeah, you're pretty close, because a lot of times you would say things that are point blank honest. Like, he literally meant what he said, and I would hear something different. And then it took me a while to realize he didn't say this, what I heard. He said that, and he actually meant only that.
Right.
And so it took me some time to learn that.
It's sad that it's so unusual to find someone who has integrity, speaks honesty, speaks the truth, where you don't have to read between the lines. So I think I've I've become so accustomed to that worldly way of living, of kind of tiptoeing around and sugarcoating things and
saying one thing meaning another.
Yes, absolutely. And I even defended it when I first came to the program, and Pastor he called it my professional voice because he knew I'd been in counseling before, but it was my way because counselors are trained to do that, to kind of come around to a difficult, come around from the outside to a difficult confrontation instead of just shooting straight down the
middle.
middle.
Knocked through the front door.
Yeah.
Right through it.
And I didn't realize that it comes across as being disingenuous. It comes across as being insincere, and especially people who've been in therapy, they see right through it and they're like, dude, I just need you to be my friend right now. Why are you trying to, because I'm trying not really sugarcoat things, but I'm just trying to test the water and tiptoe. Can I say this thing without scaring you away? Because I'm about to say something you don't want to hear and I know it. So, it does require a personal security. And what Pastor talked to me about is, can you trust in the grace of God if it goes badly? Can you trust in God's grace to carry you through it? And that's been really crucial for me because I've gotten my little feelers hurt a few times, and I've had to lean into, can God's grace cover this? And I watch him, even when those relationships go bad, I pray for that other person and I pray for myself and I repent. And God will mend it just like supernaturally. And it winds up deepening our friendship, which is awesome. Nothing I ever expected.
You're just like a bobblehead over there, like watching a tennis match going back and forth. You're just nodding.
It's kind of like a few weeks back. It was like, okay, invite me in at some point. So
one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking about your friendships, because you were talking about your lifelong friend, and I mean, how much time do you pour into that friendship versus others? Do you know what I'm asking?
Well, to be honest, if you went by time, I would be a miserable friend. My life is so consumed at this point in terms of running a recovery program and all of the different places I've traveled and people that I connect with and counseling that I do, that if time was the basis of my friendships, I would have miserable friendships. I mean, now the one relationship that is close, we get together at least once a month, so I mean it's not, and do some other phone calls and et cetera.
But you also don't, like, you're not proximity super close.
Yeah,
it's not like he's down the street.
I'm having to go out of the way to make that happen, and so we do some phone calls. I think that's the point, though, that I was making. When you develop solid, healthy, integrity friendships, I mean, you were talking about, and what I confronted you about, a lot of times we do a lot of tiptoe friendships. Where it's like, okay, I've got to say the right thing. I've got to keep him happy. I've got to keep her happy. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And when you have tiptoe friendships, they require a lot of work to maintain.
It's exhausting.
And so you have that. And I think that's a little bit of what I was saying. With me, what you see is what you get. Now, I'm pretty much the same person, and you guys know me, and you can tell me that I'm wrong with that, but I pretty much am the same person, period. Now, I have therapeutic technique. I mean, there's times when I don't have the relationship with someone, and so I'm going to be gentler, I'm going to be more loving, I'm not going to come in and, run them over or, hammer them with truth. There's times when, kind of like this program, I can actually sit there and be quiet. That's a new skill that I've learned. It
was very odd. It was very odd.
It's taken me a lot of years to learn that skill, but there's times I can actually be in a friendship and be quiet.
I thought maybe Matthew just muted your mic.
Well, that could have happened. But yeah, I'm variable in the sense of being aware of the relationship. Is there trust there? not running people over, doing more listening, etc. But you were talking about working with addicts, or not. You're talking about people in your world that need to be cut out. Well, I'm on the flip side of that. I'm in a world where I'm bringing people in that are unhealthy. And so then you have to, in terms of, I'm going to call it friendship, although some people would say it's not friendship, it's more professional. But you're setting boundaries to where our relationship needs to operate within these boundaries. And at a program level, somewhere along the line, that means, okay, you're removed from the program. Or at a friendship level, I'm not willing to invest time in you. I'm not willing to interact with you if we're going these kinds of directions. And that sounds pretty hardcore, but that comes back to, okay, that's who I am. I don't want to waste my life. I don't want to waste your life. I'm going to live here. I'm going to respond here. I'm going to respond inside of these kind of boundaries. When you do that, and people see that over a period of time, and it's not a surprise. I have people who I'm working with who end up using, fall off, go into a spiral, come back. When they walk back in my living room and say, hi, I'm the same person I was when they walked out. I'm not taking a big stick and beating them and saying, I have to beat you and bloody you before I can trust you again. No, I drew my boundaries without being grotesque on the front end. And when you walk back in, if they're playing games with me, I'm going to ask some questions, et cetera. I'll still have the same boundaries. Or if they're in a different place, I'll be open again. I mean, I think to me, that's the thing that I would say is at some point you figure out who you are and who you are in Christ. And you walk that out with a level of stability. And all of a sudden you're able to walk in and out of relationships and connect at higher levels frequently, infrequently, time gaps, et cetera. It really simplifies that picture. Whereas I think a lot of times we're searching for fun or we're searching for whatever purpose. And so then all of a sudden the relationships become very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of fear. What I hear you saying is be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, first of all, finding out who that even is definitely a process. And understanding that who I am right now is going to be in process and is going to change. And I shared a sermon with Ashley and with Matthew's wife this week, and with you actually, where he was talking about marriage and dating, but he was saying sometimes we expect that we're going to get a perfect marble statue, and really what we get is a chunk of marble that God is hammering away and, being created, and we're always being created. And so we can't expect this of friends either, that when you come into my life, you're going to stay the same. In fact, I better expect that you're going to change. Mm-hmm. I hope you are, and I hope
hopefully
I'm going to change too. Right. Yeah, we hope. But, wanting people to just be a marble statue, but learning who I am and is very difficult, and the way that so I just have to be kind of gracious and fluid with myself on that. And the best that I've been able to do at this point, because I don't even know who I am, is
you're learning.
Yeah, I am, to be current. Like, here's where I am today. Here's what's going on with me today. And that is a level of vulnerability that I have not had before. I didn't feel safe being that with people for a very long time. So I was playing those tiptoe games and kind of like, can you handle this much about me? And what will you do with that? Mm-hmm. And like, can you handle that much? And will you still be nice to me? Will you still like me if I say this or if I do this? And kind of testing waters.
Going back to what Matthew said, he brought definitely the point of honesty and truthfulness, and that's good. But let's expand that out. I mean, if a person can't handle you, classic you, who you are, is that really someone you want to be friends with? And a lot of times, because our ego is fragile, we play to that, and we really work at it. And again, I'm I'm not like I'm outside of this. I want to be liked. I want all of the above. And so I become vulnerable. But at a program level with the leaders, frequently I use this phrase, that's not who we are. Mm-hmm. You know, this is who we choose to be at a program level. We set up these values. This is who we are, and it's very value. It's very image related, not image as in I'm presenting an image, but image of Christ, meaning character. Okay, these are our character traits. Romans 8:31. If God be for us, who can be against us? You know, the whole just being for people and giving them every opportunity and working through, and so that's the character's a program. Well, then I bring it back to that's who I am as a person, and I do have to discipline myself to that. I have my selfish urges. I have my anger points. I have my I'm so sick and tired of, you know, and have to bring those things back in. But if you bring them back into a place of healthy on as consistent a basis as possible, you're going to find that, oh, wow, I can sit down and be friends with a large pool of people at that point.
So what I'm thinking about as I'm hearing you talk about that's not who we are, you know, for not knowing who I am, and because I lived in this world of moral relativism that we live in, you know, our world very much says, follow your heart, you do you, boo, live your truth, all that kind of stuff. And so it's without a firm foundation in some sort. And as Christians, I believe that should be the word of God and who he calls us to be, the image of Christ, who he's calling us to be, who he's creating us into, what he's chiseling out of that marble. Without knowing that, there is no firm foundation for a real relationship. You know, like Christ talked about the man building his house on sand. And I realized that so much of my life was built on sand because I didn't have a firm foundation. I didn't even know. I mean, this world definitely tells you, you know, whatever you want, do what feels good, follow your heart, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? And I was very trapped in that mindset that I need to meet you where you are and accept you exactly as you are. And I didn't realize that that's not really love.
The Greater Than book that I wrote really comes back to a couple of different things, and I believe this at a deep level, that you have a character piece. You have a piece within you that is a deep passion, a core desire, core values. You have that I believe is God-breathed and that it's there from the beginning. I believe everybody also has a calling. They have this sense of purpose, this sense of something that's out there. As you begin to see those pieces and you begin to discover those pieces, that goes a long ways towards what we're talking about, to where you're able to rest in that. And then you've got, I'm going to move from character to personality. To me, character is much deeper. It's much more driven, but personality, then you can have the same core desires, but one can be very outgoing and the other one very quiet and you know, unassuming, et cetera. So you've got all of these different pieces that really are pretty innate. They're pretty shaped in you. Now, those can be taken in a perverse direction. They can be taken in a godly direction. So you can flip those things very much in terms of healthy and unhealthy. But yes, there is a you. There is a God-created you. And I don't believe that you can reshape it in terms of healthy and unhealthy, godly, ungodly. I mean, there's reshaping you can do. You can dial things back. You can accentuate things. We're not this. You're doing your marble statue, okay? We're not. We're a little more malleable than that, perhaps.
It's like a funhouse mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's still you, but maybe your head's really big or your bottom's really big and your nose is really skinny. I don't know. Yeah. You know, and what I'm hearing is, you know, okay, know yourself, but beyond that, know what you kind of want and desire in a friend. Like, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, you know. Are they an honest person? Or do they habitually lie? I I mean, because I think it's better to have no friends than have a bad friend. You know, I would, you know, because they influence your life so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go, I mean, depends on what you mean by friends. I mean, I have people that I would call friends.
People you allow to influence your life.
Okay, but I have people that I would call friends. I mean, I'm friendly to, open with people in the program who are addicts or et cetera, that I would qualify as friends. Now, what you're talking about, which gets back to the boundaries and some of the topics that we've talked about, you have an inner circle, you have a 12, you have a 70. No, I'm not inviting those into my inner circle where I'm resting, you know, my future on them, et cetera. And so, yes, in terms of my life, I'm called to interact with people who struggle. So a lot of my friends are people that you're like, no, stay away from them. Don't choose them, you know. And I know that's not where you're going. But
putting words in my mouth.
Inner circle, you know, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of people I could hang out with, and you know, but when I'm struggling and needing, you know, partnership on prayer or someone to like set me straight or to speak on like maybe like you should be nicer to your husband, you know, that type of stuff, like that deep stuff that changes my direction. That's a whole different set of people.
Your husband wants me to tell you that
He probably does.
He whispered in my ear and say, on the next program, make sure that you
tell her be nicer.
Tell her that. So.
As I was looking at this topic, you know, because I think we are talking about different circles of friends, and when I think about a friend for life, I'm talking about those people who are life givers in my life, the ones who you're talking about, who are calling me. They're standing on a firm foundation that I want to be on. And when they catch me over on the sand, they're putting out a hand and not in a mean way, you know, calling me to the mat, but saying, hey, come on up here onto this firm foundation, because where you are is a place that's sandy. I like that. The verse that I really drew from was Proverbs 18:24. Which I'll give you the New King James Version. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And the ESV version of it says something even that really blew my mind. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Because, you know, I'm thinking about little kids, like when my kids were on the playground and they've just met somebody, you know, and I'm like, did you have fun on the playground? Yes, I made a new best friend. You know, well, what's their name? I don't know. Where do they go to school? I'm not sure. Are you going to see them again? Probably not, you know, but that's their friend. That's their new best friend. And sometimes I think those companions, the people that we've hung out with for a little bit, we automatically have this sense of kinship and friendship with, but that's not like a brother. My sister is my only friend for life. And we have fought with each other, squared off with each other, gone months sometimes without talking with each other. We have badmouthed each other. We have argued. We have been through it. So if a friend is someone who sticks closer than a sibling, you know, a real godly friend is someone who sticks even closer through that. That's awesome. I'm like, I'll be lucky if I have more than one of those in my entire lifetime. I will be blessed, you know, but how can I be that for someone else? And that requires forgiveness.
You must be friendly.
Must be friendly.
That's what it said.
And if you are that to someone else, you will have that for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to the whole marriage, you know, you can't have a quality marriage with a selfish person. It's not possible. You can't have a quality friendship. You can't have a friendship for life, at least the way we're describing it. You can't have a friendship for life with somebody who's not a life giver. You can be friendly toward, you can be the kind of person who reaches out. When they walk back into my life, I can be friendly towards them. We can assume the relationship where it was. That's not friends for life. You can only have a friends for life kind of a friend when there's a reciprocation. It takes two healthy people. And you don't start there. You start as kids. You start as immature. You start as whatever, and you begin to mature into that place. And as you grow up into that place, wow, we might possibly have that level of friendship now.
I like that, because you can't, that's a really good point, because you can't just, like, it's not an insta friend, you know, like you can't just pour water on it and all of a sudden they know all your deep, dark secrets and are for you all the time. You know, you have to build that relationship, you know?
Yeah. It takes some work, you know? And I always thought, if it takes work, then is that a real friendship? Shouldn't we just automatically click? But I thought the same thing about marriage, honestly. I bought into the whole Disney romance. You know, I was actually talking yesterday about how my mom told me years ago, marriage is hard. And I was like, I was in my 20s, so naive.
And you're doing
and I was
it wrong,
like,
right?
No, Mom, when you love each other, it's easy. I mean, I really believed that. You know, if you're compatible, it's easy. When you find the one, you won't have all these problems. And I've really found that the opposite is true. You know, Pastor, one of the very first things that you ever said to me before I even came into the program was, I'm going to challenge you. And then when we started working together more closely, he said, I need you to challenge me. And I thought that was really cool, you know, to invite someone, to give someone spiritual permission to speak into my life, to challenge me on what I'm saying. And it was quite intimidating at first, because I'm like, this is a man of the cloth, so to speak. You know, it's a man of God. How am I gonna challenge him? You know, I'm not supposed to do that. But it's a different foundation. It's a different basis to say, yeah, this is what I'm looking for in a relationship. I need somebody to challenge me.
Ashley had absolutely no issue with the idea of challenging me. She came in equipped for that one.
It took me a little bit, because I think when I first joined, I was still a little intimidated, because I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? You know, I mean, even as like a daughter-in-law, like I'm married into the family, I was still intimidated by him, but I don't know, somewhere in there, like it flipped. And I mean, yeah. I can get a
the
little.
The gloves came out.
I don't feel like I don't fight you. It's just more like I fight for things.
We have a unique relationship,
Yeah.
and it's fun, and it part of that does come back to learning not to be intimidated, resting, as I talked about earlier, resting in who I am. And another point that I would make that I learned somewhere in there is believing that I need the people around me, that I need to hear from the people around me. That when I teach the spiritual gifts series, I talk about all of us operate from a point of view, and that point of view is blind. It's blind to the other points of view, and so when you believe that, you believe you need other people, you need to hear from them. It still hurts. You know, there were times when you would fire off, and I'm kind of like, oh, you know, I mean, there were some of those things that would go on, and you know who I am. I'm not necessarily going to mouth back at that point. I might if we're in that zone, we're having fun, but I'm going to take that. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to say, okay, God, what do you say? And walk through that, and then usually come back with some questions and a more substantive discussion. Those procedures that I just outlined, they help you get past a lot of potential pain in a relationship where this thing explodes and it goes badly and et cetera, and it builds trust. And then once that trust is built, it really, I mean, that's huge.
You said procedures. So
well,
okay,
what I described, I said I shut down. I mean, I'm egoistic just like anybody else. I'm selfish. I'm whatever it is. And so when I sense those responses trying to rise up in me, it's like that's what I meant by procedures. It's kind of like, no, David, That's not who you are. You don't answer back. You don't answer in haste. You think about things before you just blurt them out, and you pray about things if need be. That's what I meant by procedures of just slowing things down so that when something comes at you, you're not destroying a friendship. You're not destroying a relationship over some impulsive response.
Mm-hmm. And then taking those things back and saying, God, are they correct? Is this true? Is there something I need to address here or change about whatever? I think that's an important step, because we all get confronted with things, and a true friend will confront you, But then it's like, what do you do with that is all the difference, too. So, but, you said something earlier about, we're talking about being intimidated, and that made me think of one of my friends, one of my best friends. I thought that she was like, she was up here and I was down here, and she probably, she was in a different, it never crossed my mind to be friends with her, And so it's just kind of this, like, now I didn't realize at the time how lonely she was, and it didn't appear to be, And so I am so grateful that we kind of ended up accidentally together. And it's like, oh, she wants a friend too, And so just kind of trying to look for people that, you never know until you ask.
That's true. Did you ask her, will you be my friend?
No, it started off with like, hey, what do you think about joining this group?
Okay.
Okay. You don't pull out the big guns first.
Right.
You're not like, hey, would you be my best friend forever, and we'll tell each other secrets.
Right.
But no, it was just something, it was once a week, small, we could grow into friends, or we could just enjoy the time together and move on with our lives. But it grew.
With the romantic vision, just like with husband, wife, dating relationships, we expect the big bang. We expect, boom, all right, this is it.
Yep.
And that's just not realistic. You start in a small group. You start with, hey, could we catch coffee sometime? Whatever. You start with a much lower commitment profile on the front end. You don't make commitments you can't keep. You don't jump to best friend to where, okay, there's a sense of violation when that thing doesn't work out. You grow into it. You start small. You take some connection opportunities. You work through some of that. Then if it's working, or let's go another way, sometimes it's not working. Sometimes the best friends are those that don't work well for a while. But you follow the voice of God, and you walk that through, and you get through, you said with your sister, you get through trial number 1. You get through trial number 2.
Yep.
You get through trial number 3. Somewhere in there, you begin to realize, oh, we can go through tough times together.
It's amazing. I was telling her the other day how, I think I even posted on Facebook, that my mom would always say, she has a sister too, and when we were fighting, when we were young, she would always say, you two should be nice to each other, because one day you're going to be friends. And we'd be like, no, we're not. I hate her. And when we're out of this house, I'm never going to talk to her ever again. I have nothing in common with her. And at first blush, we don't. My sister and I have, other than DNA, we look alike. We really don't have a lot in common. We do have each other's greatest interest at heart, though. I'm going to cry. Like, we don't like the same movies. We're just not, but we do care so deeply about one another's best good that we're willing to say the hard things to each other. And that is really hard to find. So, no, she's not going to be the one that I choose to like hang out with all the time, because we're different. She has other friends that she does that with. But when the going gets rough, that's who I think of. I want my sister. She's the one who's going to be there. She's the one who knows all my history and has always been there through all of this, And there are other people in my life who haven't necessarily been in my life for decades that fall into that same category. They're not the person who I'm going to go shopping with, or, I live a very independent life most of the time. I'm not somebody who like needs to, I'll go to a movie by myself. I'll go eat by myself. I don't think there's anything wrong with people who like companionship like that, but I'm just not. So, but the friends that I have, you can bet that we got each other's back, and that's huge to me.
You were describing that, and I was thinking about the verse that you read earlier, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And it was just, it's like you were just describing Jesus there. Like, just all the things that you were saying, I was like, Jesus, there's Jesus. That's, like, if you want a true friend, you have to start with a relationship with God. I think that's going to be your strongest and your best, because he is for your good. Mm-hmm. He knows everything about you. He knows the number of hairs on your head. He rejoices over you. He loves you enough to sacrifice his son for you. Like, what kind of a friend would give their child for you? Like, honestly.
Yeah.
And it starts there. Like, it's with everything else. It starts with having a relationship with God.
And that is the solid rock that I was talking about. So that when a worldly friend, when they see me on sandy ground, is going to give me a worldly answer, which is going to be, let's say I'm having a problem with my boyfriend or whatever, husband, whatever. The answer is usually going to be something along the lines of try harder. I mean, a good answer. Try harder. Maybe you should try couples counseling. Have you read this book? Be
done with it.
Right. Or I never liked that guy anyway, so it's about time you saw the truth. Yeah. I've got an extra spare bedroom. You can move in with me. Go ahead and file the divorce papers today. Like all of those kind of things. Those are very worldly answers, but they're very real, Whereas to me, somebody who's standing on the solid foundation, the solid rock, is going to challenge me and say, with some compassion and love, like I'm saying, I hear you, I see where you are. However, can you see that this is a pattern in your life? That we seem to come to this same place over and over and over again? Or I've heard you say in the past, which is why I think those kind of relationships, we can't expect them to happen overnight. It can't be, you can't be my new best friend. My best friend is, God knew us from the womb before we were created. So it takes time to grow into that type of relationship where you know me well enough to be like, this is the same thing that you do all the time, in a very loving way. So, but in the beginning, at the outset, you can start to see who those friends are, because what they're going to say is something like, can we pray together? Have you prayed about this? They're gonna point me to God. They're gonna point me to the scripture. They're gonna point me to the word, and they're gonna back it up with their own personal relevant experience. And I also see how beneficial that is. So it's not just like, oh, you just read that in your devotional this morning and you're just telling me, they're gonna back it up with like, here's how I've been through this in my life, and this is how I applied this. And that builds a bond too, and it shows that they're in integrity and they're walking their talk.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to realize, like, you have to be that person too. If that's the kind of relationship you want, you have to step into those shoes.
Yeah.
You have to be the type of person that says, okay, we need to pray about your problem. Yeah. Let me help you with this.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm listening, especially to Heather, I think about my wife, and I'm kind of like, my wife and you would not choose the same friends. My wife's a lot more mercy servant type of a thing, and confrontation is not high on her level of quality of friendship. And so it's interesting to listen to you as you've been saying this and this and this and this, and I'm like, no. There is room for that variability. We're all different people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have a solid friendship over a longer period of time, someone in the inner core, yes, you can have people who are very different, and in some cases, maybe my wife even would allow that into her world, but it better come at a lot softer, less frequent manner. She's not going to stay friends.
That's a really great point. You know, like 1 Corinthians 12, the ear can't say to the hand, I don't need you, you know, because we do need I have friends who are mercy friends who I go to when I need a softer touch, when I need somebody to just love on me.
But I think what one thing he's kind of touching on here is like his wife, this gets all confusing on what names you can use and what you can't. But she's going to be for a friend, maybe in a different, it's going to look different, but she's still for her friend. You know, she's going to be on the more side of like, let me help you with that. Let me serve you. What can I take off your plate to help and lessen your load? You know, it's going to look a little different, maybe not you and I would appreciate a gentle or friendly confrontation, but she's going to be on a different, it's going to look different, but that doesn't mean that her friends are any less for her or she's for them.
That's, as I was listening to this, I was like, well, okay, we have 3 out of 4 that the confrontation piece is extremely high, and if you count me, it would be 4 out of 4. So not quite sure how you would do those numbers. And I would suggest that the majority of the people aren't in that place. It's the majority of people are like, please just love me, accept me for who I am, help me, you know, feel good, take the next step, come alongside, help carry the load, etc. And that's all good. And that needs to be a significant part of friendship. It really, to be that supporter, to be that person. I do take it back to what I said earlier in the program, which is the integrity piece. Learning who you are, being that same person on a consistent basis. If I'm having to play act, if I'm having to put on with you, then the odds of that relationship having stability and maintaining, not going to be good. And so when you're looking for friends, there are fits. There's different kinds of people. You want the challenger, but for some people, that challenger is going to be set over here on the side, kind of out of sight, out of mind, and maybe once in a while I'll talk to that person.
That hurts, David. That really hurts.
Are you saying that I set you on the side or what?
Well, I have learned that I'm a little bit of a challenger. And so I was like, dang
I wasn't talking about me. I was saying someone like my wife would say, okay, if you're going to be in my life, I'm going to handle you, carefully. I'm going to kind of keep you over here.
Put my gloves on when we're here.
Exactly. So I wasn't talking about me. And so I wasn't trying to put you down, but there is a realism there of knowing who you are, having a variety of people, variety of relationships, but you're also going to have an inner core that fits who you are. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to do that. Now, sometimes we need an inner core of somebody who doesn't fit that so that we are challenged and we do grow. Both of those are possibilities.
Yeah, they're not all going to be Peters. Sometimes they're going to be a John. Yeah, who is just, sweet.
You might explain that.
Sweet and faithful, whereas Peter was more of a fighter and, yes, I am loyal. And so, John was a little more gentle and loving, but no less important to Jesus, Peter was, on this rock I will build my church. There was something strong there. John was the one who received the revelation. He's the one who God preserved and who Christ said gave his mother to care for because he wanted to honor his mother after he was gone. And he said, John, this is your mother, and mother, this is your son now. So absolutely, I think even in that inner circle, I've got to know the right tool for the job, so to speak, for whatever I'm looking for. If I need to just relax and kick it, you know what I mean? That there's going to be a friend that I laugh with, that we have the same sense of humor, and we just we just relate like that, and we don't have to get real deep and serious, but we can if we need to. You know what I mean? And then there's going to be friends who, like you said, are, no, I need some feedback right now, and this is the person who's going to shoot me straight. You know what I mean? So, and it's not that none of us can be all of those things to all people. Being the exhorter, of course, I want to be all things to all people. I think that I should be all things to all people, but I've also realized I can't. And that's why we need the whole body.
Well, best friends forever. I think I'll wrap it up. Share with you, we talked about Greater Than, the book Greater Than. If you're interested in that, you can go to livefreeministries.com and you can purchase that book on the website there if you navigate around the website. You can also, we thank you for being a part of this podcast. If you would like to, go ahead and subscribe. That helps us out. Pass it on to other people. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for questions, comments, and we'll see you next week.